Welcome to the Unity Guides Interviews with Experts series. My name is Clayton Stenson. I'll be your host today. This series is brought to you by the Unity Guide, where we help develop Unity within companies running on the Entrepreneurial Operating System. And we do this through fractional integrator services and coaching for the visionary and or integrator. So recently I've been meeting so many amazing people, and I thought there has to be a way I can take a piece of the conversations I have week in and week out and share them with the EOS community to add value. And one of those amazing people that I know is Melanie Towey. Melanie is an EOS implementer in the Denver market, a real spark plug. We were speaking recently, and she told me that she's super passionate about the accountability chart. So today I'm going to interview her about that. So welcome, Melanie.
Thank you. I appreciate you for having me on.
Awesome. So before I interview you, I just have two quick questions for you. So first, what is the Entrepreneurial Operating System in your own words, just in case someone watching doesn't know what it is?
Sure. In my own words, I feel like I say it so much, it's my track. Simply put, EOS, it stands for Entrepreneurial Operating System. So it is an operating system for your business. So I like to tell my clients that essentially, it's a way to harness human energy and really give you a foundation and a set of practical tools and framework to organize your business, right? So when I work with my clients using EOS, we really focus on three things. And the first one is vision. So just getting 100% alignment, everybody rowing in the right direction, same direction, right? Leaving out the assumptions. We hear that a lot of times in leadership teams, right? The visionary will assume that everybody understands where they're going. And quite frankly, that's not the case. So it's really getting alignment on that vision. Next is traction. So that's just a fancy word for accountability and discipline execution, right? So we get really, really crystal clear in your vision, and then we have to put a plan in place to execute and make sure that everybody's held accountable. And then finally, with both of those, we need the team health support. So really, it's about getting that cohesive functional team at the leadership level all the way down is really instilling that team health. And that's really what EOS is.
Awesome. That's great. Thank you. And so what's your story? How did you discover EOS and what led you to become an implementer?
Sure. I'll give you the shortened version, but it was very accidental. I think a lot of people, similar stories. Once you see the book Traction, you can't unsee it, right? You'll see it in an airport. You'll see it sitting at a restaurant. It's funny. I had never heard of Gino Wickman or Traction. Gino is who wrote Traction, for those of you who are not familiar. I have been in the construction building materials world for the last 12 years. And originally from the Midwest, Minneapolis, made my way out to the West Coast, San Francisco and Los Angeles. Had a really unique operational marketing and sales leadership background. Got really, really deep, really, really fast in my career. Ended up in LA. I was managing a lot of people, and really through my own curiosity, I started to do a lot of work on how to be a better leader, right? Reading a lot of books, podcasts, that type of thing. Actually went back and got my coaching certification, dove into something called rapid transformational therapy, really working with belief repatterning, which lended itself really well to management. And somebody along the way, right when COVID happened, handed me the book Traction when I was in Minneapolis, right before the world shut down. And they said, Mel, you need to read this book or you need to be a turnaround agent. I said, no, thank you. I'm not consulting. I had no idea what it was. I read the book on the airplane and I fell in love with the simplicity of it. For those of us who have ever been either led a business, built a business, sat on a leadership team, a lot of the same frustrations over and over are presented. And I just really felt like we've overcomplicated this stuff, right? I was a bowling ball in a china shop in corporate America. I'll raise my hand to that. I did not belong there. It was everything that it was like, what are we doing? We're making this harder than it needs to be. And so really, Traction really helped instill that framework in my own world. COVID happened. The world went upside down. And I actually was one of the people that resigned during the pandemic. I was just at a point where it was now or never, and I really didn't know what that looked like. Started at individual clients using the tools and framework, and then 2 years ago, I just celebrated my 2-year anniversary. I took the leap, and it became my business full time. So I work with a array of clients across the country. So I am out of Denver, but I do work with people all over and in every industry, but still construction, building materials, real estate. I still hold that close close to my heart. It's near and dear. So it's something I'm very passionate about. And that's how I got here.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's shift gears now and talk accountability chart. So why are you so passionate about the accountability chart?
Honestly, I love the accountability chart because it's probably one of the hardest tools. And I know that seems kind of at first like really, but it's also a tool that holds so many of the answers. I tell my clients 80% of your issues live in that tool. And in EOS, we're presenting a handful of practical tools to help you get more clarity in your business, create more simplicity. And here comes this accountability chart. And so many organizations are not prepared to look at the business from a structure standpoint. They look at the business from a people standpoint. When you start to look at the business from a structure standpoint, which is what the accountability chart does and challenges ownerships, leadership teams to do, a lot of people issues, a lot of other issues within the business are going to come out and present itself. And I think it's really challenging for people. But again, do what's hardest, you're going to get the results,
Right.
right? So path of least resistance, that's a real thing. And so I just think it's a super valuable tool, and it changes the game in how organizations are run and structured.
That's good. And I think if I recall correctly, in Traction at the back, it talks about if you're going to self-implement EOS without an implementer, that's what it recommends to do first is the accountability chart.
Yeah, and as an implementer, I start my clients in something called a focus day, right? And so I often get asked the question because we do start with the accountability chart first before we ever start talking about vision. That confuses some people until you explain it. And how I explain it is we could start with vision and I'd say it's the feel good, right? It's the core values, it's who you are, it's really what your sweet spot is. If we talk about your core focus, we talk about all these things that are super critical. We start laying out your 3-year picture, your 1-year plan. We start setting rocks around things, right? So setting those priorities. We can do all that, but if I don't know who's accountable in a room, I get a bunch of bobbleheads and no voice. We need to understand, and the people and the leadership team need to understand who's accountable for what, and that does not happen. So really setting that framework it's typically about a 3 to 14-hour exercise at first pass, right? It totally depends on the client, and it's okay. It's meeting them where they're at and what they need. But we really start by looking at who's accountable. Okay, so accountability chart, that's why we call it. We've all heard of the organizational chart. Throw your org chart out, that evokes ego and title. I tell people usually in an organization chart, it's going to tell me who makes the most money, right? Congratulations. That's what it doesn't tell us anything else but the hierarchy and the title within it. So leaving that and really replacing that with accountability chart, which is just going to show you the functionality needed in the business and the roles and responsibilities assigned to individuals within the organization. So again, very simple, but very different than what we're used to seeing.
Mhm. Can you tell us an example of how you've, like a problem that's arisen based on looking at working with a client to build their accountability chart and how it was, instrumental in moving forward?
Sure. A common one, you have way too many leaders, right? Especially larger companies. Everyone's a leader. And the leadership team also, you have 4 executive vice presidents, right? How do we get there? People got raises, people needed places to move. At the end of the day, the accountability chart is about creating the structure of your leadership team. The leadership team is who's the buck stop with, right? So who's being accountable? One person can be accountable, not 10. If 10 people are accountable, no one's accountable. So the challenge that I see a lot is we have these really robust leadership teams. We've overcomplicated it. We've got too many people in a room. We need to just really understand and strip down back to who's in charge of what? Who's your sales leader? Who's getting the call when sales go sideways, right? Who's getting the call financially? There can't be 3 people. Now there can be a lot of people supporting that. So keep in mind that we build this out. But when I get a leadership team in a room, it's often we've got to cut through the egos. We've got to check the egos at the door to say, not everyone is going to be in this room. It doesn't mean you're getting fired. It doesn't mean that we're getting rid of you. We just have to have that foundation at the leadership level and get really crystal clear. So it does present a lot of people issues at first pass. And I would say the first 6 to 12 months I work with a client, we're dealing with a lot of those. And it's just making sure that one, we have the right structure, and then we have the right people to fit in those seats. And those are 2 very different strategic decisions that you have to make, a lot of challenges are around them. That's a good thing. It means we're moving in the right direction. We're having the right conversations and discussions.
So if you've never created accountability chart, if it's your first time through, what advice do you have?
Well, one, read traction, because it's going to give you the most simplest approach, right? And look, these tools are free to download. You can go to EOS Worldwide. Okay, I'll give them a shameless plug. And again, we want to help people. So even if you're not using an implementer, this is a valuable tool. Go read that. And I would start really looking at bringing your leadership, who you deem your leadership team today, and really just talking about the business. Sitting down at first pass for self-implementers or for people, again, that have just read traction is understand that the foundation of every company is the same. Okay. They have three functions. Everyone's got a sales and marketing function. Everyone's got an operations function and everyone's got a finance function, right? Now, somewhere within those, we're going to see IT/HR might go into finance. That's okay. Operations might break out into one or two. That's okay. Sales and marketing, they may split. But really, we use it as the starting guidelines of saying, okay, what seats are right for your business? And we go, Mel, I don't know. I would say first question is take a step back, look at the accountability chart as workflow. All we're trying to do when we create accountability charts is capture the entire workflow of the organization. How does the business work from start to finish, right? How do you take care of the business? We need to get that out before we can ever put seats around that part of the workflow, right? So people get in their way because they automatically start going, well, Clayton sits in that seat. So we're going to just build a sales seat exactly how Clayton has it. And I would challenge you, that's not the right way to look at it. It's a hard habit to kill. You have to build a new muscle, structure first, people second, structure first, people second. Get a bumper sticker, laminate it, post it on your wall. It has to be about structure first. I'm all about people and I'm super passionate about this. If you cannot get your structure right, forget having the right people because there won't be a business there to support the right people. You have to put the business first. You have to understand the strategy. And that starts with really just understanding, very simply put, what are the core functions of the business, right? Start with the three: sales, marketing, operations, finance. And then there's two additional seats that, Clayton, I know this is what your listeners are probably, you're one of the other visionary or integrator, or you've heard of these terms. We refer to the integrator, right? This is your cohesive glue that holds the company together. We need these people. I would say this is a critical position to any organization. They are really operate as that person that talks to the visionary, understands, really can capture the big ideas and then get everything in line and get everybody marching and rowing in the same direction, right? They love details. They love plans. They're great at leading people. We need that position. So that is a function in EOS that we talk about that is really helping lead those core functions of the business, that sales and marketing function, the operations function, and the finance function. And then finally, we have that visionary piece, right? Visionary, big idea person. They're likely the person, they walk into your meeting, they spike about 20 ideas like a volleyball at everybody and then leave. God bless them. I love them. I'm one of them, right? We need them. But they're big culture people. They're big relationship people. Their skill set is not to go into the details and to get everybody going in the same direction. That
Yeah.
integrator is taking all of that and helping get that all through the funnel. So we capture those great ideas and then get them to the team in the order of priority and the strategy as it's dictated. So really with those five, I would start there and really create that starting point before you start building anything out below to support that. We need to get that right.
Right. That's good. I have a couple stories that I want to share and get your feedback on. So last week I met with there's a small group, three guys that have a kind of a mastermind group. They meet weekly, and they were reading Traction. They asked me to just come and share my perspective on it. And one of them is him and three people. It's a welding company, and he asked me the question like how, like EOS is designed for 10 to 250 employees. He only has three, right? So he asked me like, how does all this apply to me when it's so small? So I want to hear your perspective on that when they're not quite target market that big enough.
This goes both ways, right? Small and big.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
the accountability chart still works the same way. So I have clients as small as a two-person, 500,000 to $1 billion 500,000 employees, right? It's how fast you're going to go and how robust this thing's going to look. And so when I'm starting with smaller, like a 3-person, is great. I applaud them for coming and going through EOS and using the tools now, because they're actually creating great habits out of the gates, and they don't have to unwind work that they've already done.
Yeah.
And bad habits created. So what I say is we're constantly looking at the accountability chart from a 6 to 12 month out perspective. So I want to know, in 6 to 12 months out, what does the organization need to look like structurally? Now, we're still going to start with the same 5 functions, okay? Sales, marketing, operations, and finance, with the integrator visionary. Why? Because I don't care if you're a 1-person show, those functions still exist in your business. When we get to people, you may have someone sitting in 3 of those seats. That's okay. We need to map that out as a starting point. What happens too often with small organizations is they go, well, Clayton's wearing every hat, so I'm just going to create one box and say, this is Clayton's business.
Yeah.
And while that's great to show for yourself, it doesn't show the reality. When we split it up and show it into functions, we go, wow, Clayton's sitting in 4 seats. That's probably not sustainable. So can we map a strategy, which is where we use our VTO tool, our Vision Traction Organizer? Can we afford that hire? What revenue needs to be generated to prioritize that first hire, right? What is the priority? If there's 4 priorities, what's the first one, right? What's the first domino we need to hit in order to get the next layer of results? So I would say it's a really critical tool for being small in business, because it's going to help you build the roadmap to scale and grow to where you want to be. You got to start somewhere. Even if it's, again, Mel, I'm running my company, I'm sitting in all 5 seats. In a year, do I want to be? If I don't, then what can I afford? What revenue do I need to generate? Again, that's going to kickstart some goals and strategies. It's going to help give the conversation and shed light into what's next.
Yeah.
Does that help?
Yeah, and that's pretty much what I said to him. I said, I'd still draw it out, and then, you're going to be in all the boxes. But what I said was, which box do you hate the most? Basically, which box drains your
Some
energy?
people think in those terms, right? Which one you want to get rid of? There's usually one they're screaming uncle with. So, and that'll get flushed out. I mean, I'll take them through, again, prioritizing. The delegate and elevate tool is
Yeah,
a really critical tool to help uncover that. Again, that is free to download. Go to US. That is something that's really going to help if you're one of these visionaries, integrators, founders, and you're sitting in 3, 4 boxes. Go do the delegate and elevate exercise, because it's going to show you what your unique ability is. It's going to show you all the tasks and things, roles and responsibilities that are in other seats that you need to get out of. And that's going to help you prioritize if you've got paralysis and understanding what that first move is.
for sure. And I told them, generally speaking, it's usually like the bookkeeper, that stuff they don't enjoy a whole lot. Like often a visionary of a small company, so you can hire a bookkeeper to help you out for a reasonable price, or maybe an
Sure.
assistant or something. You can't afford an integrator, but maybe you can afford an assistant that can take your calendar management or something off of your plate or whatever to kind of ease the pain.
Correct.
So then another story. So I had a client a couple of years ago. They had about 60 employees, and he was the chief operating officer. They weren't running on EOS, but they were exploring EOS. And I told him, you should build your accountability chart. Don't, again, like you said, don't put the names in the boxes, but just draw the functions. And then afterwards, put the names in the boxes. And he did that. And he came back to me and he said, my name's in 13 boxes, Clayton. We have a problem here.
Yeah, that's common too. 13. Oof, I don't think I've had one that high, but it's that's a lot. So I'm sure he's running around with his hair on fire most days.
Well, he said he fired himself right after that from some of the box, right?
Good.
He had 2 sales managers at the time. And so he went into a meeting with the 2 sales managers and he said, I am firing myself from the sales manager role. And one of you is gonna, or it's actually there was 3 sales managers. One of you is gonna take that role. So I'm taking applications. And then he removed himself from that role. And now he just had a direct report. So I like the fact that the accountability chart does that. Like it just gives you clarity for what you have, what the situation you have, and
Yep.
then it can inform your strategy for promotions and developing people or hiring or whatever. So
Well, and to piggyback on that, right? And so accountability chart, we teach something on another tool, People Analyzer, which I know you're familiar with.
Yep.
And you get the right structure and people go, well, Mel, how do I know if I have the right person? So in that scenario, you would take a seat, right? Then you have 5 roles and responsibilities in every seat. That's what we teach in EOS. What are the high level 5 roles and responsibilities in each function? So if I'm applying for the job, Mel asked, what am I going to do here? Boom, 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 right? This is high level. So the higher you up in the organization, like sales, that's high level. You're in charge of sales, right? It's going to get more granular, more you go down in the accountability chart, but really teaching something called GWC, which stands for get it, want it, has the capacity to do it. So we actually filter people back through that when it's ready to go, okay, we can take applications and 15 people can apply, but we're going to go with the person that GWC's at across the board. Means G, they have the God-given talent to do the job. This is not controllable. They either get it or they don't, right? You cannot change if someone gets their job. Okay. Want it? Do they want it? This always makes me chuckle. Have you asked them? No? Why? Right? Go back and ask them. Do they want the job? Did you just put it there because there's nowhere else to put them? Bad move, by the way. Don't do that. They have to want the job. The people that like their job and want their job are going to give you 10 times more out of that seat, right? Than the people that don't want to be there and they're just collecting a paycheck. So have that conversation. And then capacity, anything that applies to capacity, this is a controllable. Okay. So capacity, time, resources, training, tools, anything that you can give them, coach them, help them get to that. But we're looking for 3 S's. So if I walk into a client and they go, well, Mel, they GW don't see, nope, we're not there. It's an issue. We've got to look at it. I want 3 S's across the board. If it's it's a no, right? So it has to be 3 S's. Sometimes that means you're looking externally. This is the hardest part of the accountability chart. You love your people. Okay. It's one of the biggest people issues we see. You have a cultural fit, but you can't find a place for them. I'm going to beg with you, plead with you, please part ways with that person. You are not doing them a favor by keeping them in an organization that they don't feel like they have a place in either, right? Hard, yes, not arguing with it. But one of the most common people issues is you cannot create seats for people and you cannot make concessions because you don't want to get rid of people. If you cannot find somebody internally to GWC the seat, honestly, across the board, you are creating more work. Hear me loud and clear. Way, way, way more work by trying to put them in that seat, knowing it will not work. You will be back in the same place 12 months later. And again, it is a hard thing. It's easier for Mel to come in. I'm third party. I get it. I hear it all the time. But why are you using EOS, right? Answers in the tools. I'll go back to what I said. The accountability chart works. 80% of your issues are in there. I just listed a ton of them. Okay. But if you're not willing to deal with them, then people will do the work with the accountability chart and stick it in the drawer. Why? Because it's like, well, it's really hard. It's really hard to update that thing all the time. And it is. It's a discipline. But once you learn the discipline, it is a super streamlined tool that's going to give you the answers to where you need to go in the business, who you need to hire, where you need to make structural changes for the business, not the person, and get you those people that are right fit for those seats.
Mm-hmm. That's good. That's good. And you bring up, earlier you said that the accountability charts will reveal 80% of the issues in your organization. And
Mm-hmm.
I've seen this too, but it seems like very common. One of the major problems of organizations is that people are afraid to attack the issues, enter the danger, talk
Mm-hmm.
about the elephant in the room. Why don't you share a little bit about that, kind of how you would encourage someone to enter the danger on an issue that's shown from the accountability chart?
Sure. So again, this is probably why I get hired the most. I get to be in the room to facilitate this, right? So I'm not running from it. I'm calling it out. I'm going to help that get put on the table. Clients often tell me, even if they understand the tools, we need that third party, right, to be in the room, to hold the mirror, to help us show, what are the issues. Again, I'm not a consultant, so my only thing is I'm coaching, I'm facilitating, I'm teaching, I'm helping them get there a little bit quicker and then hang on to that and not run away from it. If you are self-implementing or reading the book, it is challenging. It takes discipline to run into conflict. Conflict is not bad. It has been a negative connotation. Conflict issues breed strategy. I tell my clients all the time, you want issues, you want a healthy issues list, because those issues are going to breathe your next level of strategy, because your strategy should accomplish killing all those issues. So the harder your issues are, the more strategy you have, the more meat that's going to be in there, which is good. If I have a client that are like, I have no issues, it's like, well, where are we going? Like we got no direction, right? So I would say lean into the uncomfortable conversations. I know it's really hard for a lot of people. Take the personal out of it. This is business. And there is a personal aspect of business, don't get me wrong. And I love culture, and EOS we teach, that's half of EOS is culture. But do not confuse the two. Culture and taking things personally when it's a business decision. If you are in a leadership role, my expectation of you is that if you have that seat and you truly GWC, that is part of the expectation. Kind of put your big girl pants on, put your big boy pants on, and have the conversation. Is if you're the one in the hallway having the behind the back conversations or the sidebars, stop. It's not productive. Say it in the room. It's going to feel uncomfortable for a half a second, but I promise once it's out there, no matter how it's dealt with, you're going to feel better about it. But again, this is a discipline. We don't learn this well enough in business. And most of us hate conflict. That's psychology, right? So it's reteaching and reframing to do the work and to have the hard conversations. Because again, if you can do that, then you're going to be way better off than most companies are. It is the hardest thing to do, but you have to lean into it. And if it doesn't go well the first time, guess what? You got probably 10 more times before you try it, then maybe it feels a little bit easier, but it will, like anything, the more times you do it, it will feel more natural. And by the way, you don't get team health without this. So you can tell me that you want a healthy team all the way, but until you understand that you have to start having difficult conversations, be open and honest, right? Enter the danger, be able to take constructive feedback from your team and your employees, you will never create a team health environment. It won't happen because team health is built on trust. Trust is built on real conversations, entering the danger, being open and honest. And that would be my feedback. But again, I'm not minimizing it. It's tough. It's hard, but start. You got to start somewhere.
And I think this is a common challenge that people have, is that they look forward to the day when there will be no issues anymore. Right? But it's a
There
lie.
will never be a day, and I laugh. It won't happen, right? It's sort of like I we talk about in the US all the time, like businesses are like children or like families or marriages. You do this the best. Like you do a whole thing on marriages and relating it to business. It's the same thing. At what point did your kids just poof, stop having issues? At what point did you have no issues in your marriage? At what point, right? Like it doesn't exist. It changes, it evolves. You
Yeah.
either get good at communicating with it, right? Or learning tools to work through it and manage it, but it's coming. And it's coming more at certain points in your life. Same in business.
Yeah.
You're going to have, we call it hitting the ceiling. You've heard that concept. You're going to have points where, you know what, you're in a growth and you're just going to hit. And you need the tools of EOS and the tools in business to be able to break through that. It's the same thing. Okay. But issues are always going to be there. It's now you have the tools to deal with it, but don't be the person that thinks that once you smoke out a list of 300 issues, that 300 more aren't coming back. And look, that's not meant to, someone listening to this is like, well, why would I start? Again, it gets easier. I promise you, but it
Yes.
never is going
Hopefully
to go
the
away.
issues that get less and less severe.
Yes. And again, you can manage it because you're a pro at it, right? So
Yeah, you
it's
get
again,
better
it's
at
like,
it.
hey, we've done this. We're equipped to deal with this. Your team's a lot healthier. So again, those dynamics, it just everything feels more comfortable. It feels better. But you got to hang in through that first initial part to learn to use the tools to develop that skill.
Yeah. If someone's listening to this and they're like, yeah, man, I'm just not good at dealing with issues and solving issues and having hard conversations, is there a book or resource or anything that you would recommend?
My goodness, there's so many out out there. Again, I'm a proponent of get somebody else in the room with you, right? And I don't care if it's an implementer or not, but a lot of my clients will raise their hand and say, I'm not good at this. Great. That's what I'm there for, right? Get a
Right.
coach, get somebody that you trust in your office to sit there and help try to facilitate. Don't do all the heavy lifting alone. Sometimes it's good to have somebody that can give you, again, I say hold the mirror for you. Do you have somebody in your world that can do that to help you facilitate and start to have some of those conversations? And then there's a million resources out there, whether it's podcasts or books. And
Yeah.
again, for those of you who think that you're unique and somehow your business is dysfunctional and you're the only one that feels this way, is you're not. You're not unique. You're not different. Every single person who's ever run a business, owned a business, feels this way, has felt this way, will continue to feel this way, right? It's a huge topic in business. So don't feel like you're alone. We already have enough of that going on in the entrepreneurial world where business is lonely, right? We talk about that. Entrepreneurial journey is lonely. Don't make this part of that, right? You're not
Yeah.
unique. You're not different. Everyone's dealing with conflict. I
Yeah.
don't care what they tell you. It's just a natural part of business.
Yeah, I would agree with you. Don't do it alone, right?
Yeah,
Like get
for
in a
sure.
peer group, find some people in your church or in
Yeah.
your network that you can walk with if you're going through a hard time. Talk to them. They've probably been through something similar, and you'll discover that you're not the only person that feels the way that you do. So that's great.
Amen.
So just on the way of wrapping up, is there anything else that you want to add that you feel like could add value before we wrap up?
My goodness. I mean, I could talk about US forever, but accountability, again, you can have, here's where I would say the people that say accountability chart, not for me, I have the vision, right? Is you can have the best laid plan and you can have a bulletproof vision. But if you cannot get people to understand how to execute on that vision, which means you do not have, they need to be held accountable, you will not take that vision where it's supposed to go. You have to have both. It's not one or the other. And the accountability, it comes down to discipline. And every single person in your organization has to be accountable for something. Okay. We talk about in the EOS a lot is one person's accountable or no one's accountable, right? You can't have three people in one seat because otherwise no one's accountable. So you really have to start honing in on taking that vision. Okay. So if you're the one that already has the vision done, you're working this backwards now. Go back to the accountability chart and start from there and say structure first, people second, because that vision's not taken off without right people, right seat, which we talk about in the US all the time. That was what makes your accountability chart is that right seat. It has to be there. It has to be in place. That's what's going to take to make your vision successful.
That's good. Yeah, and I like to say that you got to remove the gray, right? I've had clients where it's like you ask somebody, so what's your job title? And they say what it is, and I'm like, that's not what the visionary told me was your job title, right? So it just removes that gray area to make sure that everyone's crystal clear. This is my part, like on a football team. My job is to block, my job is to do this, my job is to run this route. Like everybody knows what they're supposed to do. If they don't, somebody goes the wrong way, could be an interception, right? Like everybody has to be clear, on where they're going. So
Well, and to that point too, I think it's really critical. This is why titles drive me crazy. Call it a rooster, call it a goat. I don't care. We put our own interpretation into titles, right? A project manager to me may be something different for you. So I think that's a function. That's call it what it is, but the roles and responsibilities really define what you do. So to your point is if you can have crystal clarity every single person in your organization on what do you do high level 5 roles and responsibilities, if you put all of those seats back on one piece of paper, which creates the accountability chart, it should capture every single thing that's happening in the organization where every handoff is taking place horizontally, vertically, right? And so really to your point is we're taking all of that gray out, and again, take the title, take the ego, all of that out is who's accountable for what. It will change the game. Your employees will thank you. No longer will they be getting 7 different directives from your management team who keep changing their day-to-day job every single day because things keep evolving and changing. That's confusing. Employees love EOS because it creates clarity.
that's awesome. Awesome. So if someone wants to learn more about EOS and what you do, how should they get in touch with you?
Yeah, the easiest way is shoot me an email, melanie.towey@eosworldwide.com. You can always go to eosworldwide.com, tools and resources on there. And then my own website is byMelanieAnn.com. So again, all of those resources are there. I'm pretty easy to get in touch with. I'm on a lot of podcasts. I do a lot on LinkedIn, as you and I both know, and that's how we got connected. So please reach out. Again, even if you're not planning on implementing, I'm here to help, even if I can answer, have an hour call with you to help get you started. That is the mission of everybody in EOS. We just want tools in people's hands because we want you to be able to simplify your business and in turn build a better business, build a better life. That's what we're all about. So please reach out if you need anything. And thank you so much for having me on, Clayton. I always enjoy, as you can tell, I'm passionate about what I do, and I always love chatting with you and seeing how our worlds collide. And I love watching your success and everything you're doing out there with the community as well.
Thank you. So, on behalf of our viewers, thank you for joining us today, and thanks for sharing your passion for the accountability chart and EOS. And I'm sure it will be impactful to those that are watching. So, if today's interview added value to you, please subscribe to this channel on YouTube for future interviews with other EOS implementers and experts in the world of business.